November 12, 1985. The elections were over. Doe had been declared the winner. There were people in the United States and other places who felt that the elections were rigged. Mr. Emmett Harman had announced that President Doe had won, head of state Doe had won the elections. Because I was working with the Liberian Information Center in Washington, D.C., I monitored Mr. Harman's broadcast live from the Unity Conference Center because the government had money and they could just put the telephone on and put it to the radio and I heard everything. After that, there were plans to come and teach Doe a lesson. And so people prepared to come. And it was rumored and later confirmed by some members of that organization that a group that called itself the Liberian Business Caucus was behind plans to come and teach the president-elect a lesson in how to rig an election. And so this planning went on to the extent that this organization found itself in the very center of a plot and a plan to remove Doe before inauguration, which was going to be January. So they were going to remove him in November. And I'm talking this because of the young people. In this, the way I said yesterday, do not let anybody tell you about country and Congo. They will be fooling you. People do not get together because you are country or you are Congo. People get together because of interests, political interests, economic interests, social interests. The Liberian Business Caucus were comprised of people who mostly were hitched to the Monrovia group, the bluff boys, the affluent boys, the business boys. And so Doe didn't have a real connection to that group. And so that group felt very safe having their meetings behind the information building in the Chamber of Commerce building and talking all kinds of things about what they were going to do to Doe. What they did not know is that one of their own members had been elected to a high office in the government that Doe was supposed to take over in January 1986. So this guy panicked. After they got to a certain place, he panicked. Because then it clicked to him that if they mess this guy up, my position is messed up. This guy got nothing to do with Doe. He's not even from the southeast. He's not Bassa, he's not Crew, he's not Loma, he's not nothing. He's from the newcomer group. And the newcomer group are those who came from Caribbean island. So this guy, on November, the eve of that invasion, the guy flew to Tucson. Doe had been in Tucson, and the people who were going to plan the invasion were in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I believe if you want to know about this, go on the internet and plug in Dr. Famula's website. He has a 25-page letter outlining this whole thing, including the names of all the people involved. So you got your homework, do it. So this guy flew to Tucson and told Doe in Tucson that you're sitting down here, the people are bringing an invasion tomorrow morning. And it will start at 5. So Doe, having his military sense, concluded that if this guy could come and tell me about what his friend's doing, then I do not need to tell him what I would do, because he could go and tell his friends what I would do, and then any side I win, he will be part of that side. So Doe just told him, okay, I hear what you said, I will take care of it. And Doe told me he told a guy to leave, and the guy left Tucson and came back to Monrovia. That evening, on the eve of the invasion, Doe quietly and secretly got in his jet 20-engine small blue jet plane and flew from Tucson and landed at Spring Field under the cover of darkness. Got into a tinted glass car and drove to the executive mansion. Got his boys together and told them that he had something to tell them. But he went to sleep and said when he get up he would tell them something. They should all remain in the yard. He went to sleep, got up, shaved himself, got dressed in his commander-in-chief uniform, and called them together and said, there will be an invasion here tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. I command you that when it starts, don't shoot back. Don't do anything. If they break the mansion down, let them break it down. Don't shoot back until day breaks. Then we will open up. Do you understand me? They said yes. Go to the barracks, tell the people in the BDC that they should just be on the standby for any orders. Don't say anything else to them. Meanwhile, those who were coming from Freetown had already written a script, and they made Quiwonkpa read the script, and the script said that President Doe had been overthrown, he on the run, and there's no escape for him, and all kinds of things. Arrest all government officials and bring them to the mansion. That tape was recorded before they entered Liberia. And it was authored by two persons who are not friends today. I will not call the names. Go and do your research in Fambuda's letter. So the two guys wrote the script. Quiwonkpa read it on the cassette. They came, stormed LBS, put the tape on. And everybody thought that Doe was doomed. But Doe was sitting in the mansion listening to everything. And the bombardment started at 5, about 5. And there was no shooting coming from the mansion. And the broadcast on the radio was telling people that Doe has fled. And everybody believed it because no shooting was coming from the mansion. By daybreak, those soldiers opened up, and those people who were shooting around the mansion were subdued. The poor public did not know what was happening. They started arresting government officials and taking them to the mansion. When they arrived, the mansion guard would open the gate. They would take the government officials in, the gate would close behind them. The officials will be taken to go and eat or to go and sit down and rest somewhere. Those who brought the official, that was the end of their day. Nobody carried the news out. So more people brought more people. I was seated in Washington, D.C. as press counselor. But I had access to what was happening because I was in touch with people working at the information ministry, the mansion, and other places. And after the occasion, I got my briefing. So wave upon wave of people brought in government officials. They were arrested, and nobody heard anything. In the meantime, the commanding general, former commanding general, was in front of LBS walking up and down and talking about how he did not come to share blood. It was videotaped, and I saw the videotape. He said grand jury and Nimba are the same people. He did not come to share blood. He just came to liberate the people from Doe dictatorship and all of that. Well, that's what he said. And things were going on that he didn't know. He didn't know the tide had turned. At one time he looked at his watch and he said, Papa said that at 2 o'clock the helicopter will arrive. We don't know who is Papa. The helicopter never arrived. How did Doe come back to power? There was a gentleman called Mansfield Yancey. Mansfield Yancey. Mansfield Yancey was a military intelligence expert. He worked 9 years under President William V.S. Tubman before Talbot came to power. And when Talbot came to power, he continued in military intelligence. Mansfield Yancey was the one who, when all of the military security and other forces met in shuffling in 1984 to nominate Doe to be their presidential candidate, it was Mansfield Yancey who got up and made a speech nominating Doe. With Quiwonkpa invasion, Mansfield Yancey knew that his day was done because they will remember who dominated Doe. Now, before you get confused about the fact that Doe got nominated in a soldier barracks, and you say why he didn't get nominated in a party headquarters or somewhere, I must tell you that Doe was not the first to get nominated in a soldier barracks. History in Liberia and many places usually repeat itself. Mr. Barkley was about to leave office in 1943. There was one James Cooper who was supposed to be running to be president. James Cooper and Barkley were all settler people, and James Cooper was tough and said that he was going to audit Barkley when he becomes president. And Barkley knew the implications of what an audit could do, because before Cooper started to agitate against Barkley, Barkley had already confiscated Charlie King property. You know the International Trust Company? Down here they call it something else now. What do they call it? IB? Okay, the IB Bank, that's Charlie King's property. Barkley confiscated Charlie King's property. When Tubman came back to power, he gave it back to the old man and made him ambassador to the United States. So Barkley knew what it was to be audited, because then his property could be confiscated too. So Barkley panicked and decided to play the regional card. And his argument was that we always got presidents from these 3 original counties, Maryland, Monrovia, Bassa, and Sino. So this time we have to get a president from the new county. And the new county in those days was Maryland. By that time, Tubman was a social justice, a very sociable man, come to town, hang out everywhere. All the boys liked him. All the women wanted to be around him. And the women used to call themselves Tubman good type. They call themselves Tubman good type. And he became popular. And so he fell in love with some of these women around here. And one of the women he fell in love with was Barkley's niece, Antoinette, after whom the Antoinette Tubman Stadium is named. So Barkley said, well, it's time for Maryland to produce a president. Tubman was married to his wife, Martha Prout, but when he came to town, he was taken care of by Barclay's niece. So Barclay wanted his niece's boyfriend to be this president. Because if that happens, then Barclay thought he could control this boy from Maryland. So Barclay hurriedly took Tubman to United States and introduced him to President Roosevelt as the person he intended to carry as president. President Roosevelt gave his blessing and everything, because in those days it's like the king about to get old and bring his older son and say, this is the king. So all they said, the king is dead, long live the king. So they came back and Mr. Cooper and his people said they would not stand for a Tubman being president. Number one, they said he didn't know too much of book. Number two, because he went to Kipama Seminary and he didn't go to Liberia College like the other people. Number two, they said he was a womanizer. Number three, that he loved the booze and all of that. So they wanted somebody that would be academic like Barclay, who wrote love poems and wrote the Lone Star Forever, and he could compose music and do all kinds of things. Old man Charlie King could compose music too. A member of our president were intellectuals. J.J. Roberts left the presidency and went to teach at the University of Liberia and became president of the university. Liberia College in those days. So they wanted somebody that would come down that strain of being a philosopher, a poet or something, and Tubman was just a happy-go-lucky guy who everybody just liked. So when Barclay found out that it was going to be difficult for him to nominate Tubman, and it started to become clear that Tubman was not going to be nominated, because even the people in the Tree Party had started to say they would not nominate Tubman, Barclay arranged to have his caucus for the Tree Party for the purpose of nominating his candidate. And the place that Barclay chose to have his caucus was the Barclay Training Center, the military barracks, BTC. Instead of going to the Tree Party headquarters, he called for a convention of the party in the BTC, 1943, to nominate Tubman. And of course, it happened in the evening. It happened in the evening. And when it happened in the evening, no one could enter the military installation except with the expressed invitation of the commander-in-chief of the army. Because why would you want to be at the military barracks in the night when nobody called you there? You could be charged with something. So they went into the BTC, and only those who were now invited by President Barclay could enter the BTC. And there where they had the nomination of President Tubman to become president of Liberia. The next day it was broadcast all around here by word of mouth that Tubman had been nominated. So when Doe repeated it in 1984, it was not a strange thing. Our children will always imitate what we do. So we should be careful what we do. Even if our children don't know what we did, by some means they try to imitate something. And so Doe then were imitating what Barclay did in 1943. And so Mansi Yancey was the one who got up and nominated Doe to be the president of Liberia, representing the military and the security forces. On that day, all former immigration officers, all former officers of the NBI, the National Intelligence and Security Service, the Quick Action Bureau, the police, the military, every bunch of the government, whether you are active or not active, you had to appear at shuffling. And it was at shuffling that they nominated Doe. After Doe got nominated and the elections went on and everything went going time for them preparing for inauguration, he announced the appointment of Mansfield Yancey as ambassador of Liberia to the Republic of Guinea. Mansfield Yancey, who has nominated him, was now declared ambassador to Guinea. All this was in the works when the Liberian Business Caucus machinery was also working. On the day of that invasion, this military intelligence expert Mansfield Yancey listened keenly to the tape being played on ELBC. Over and over and over they were playing that tape, that same tape. Mansfield Yancey, knowing very well that if this thing had succeeded, he would have been in trouble, approached government authorities and told them that it was not Quiwonkpa speaking on the radio. It was a cassette of a recording of the voice of Quiwonkpa. It was not himself. And therefore suggested that the whole thing could be turned around if we could only capture that cassette from the radio station. And therefore the military objective for that day was to capture the radio station and take the cassette off. How do you do that? They had some people from shuffling, counterinsurgency people, to come to the radio station with their rifles in the air as a sign of surrender. They approached the radio station, turned over their rifles, and Quiwonkpa told them not to ill-treat them, let them sit down. These are the kind of people we like. We didn't come here to kill anybody. So they sat them down. And these agents just watched keenly everything, checked everything out. Some people who say that we didn't have a trained army, I'm sorry for them. We had a trained army. But if you don't treat your trained army like a trained army, they could get wild and go out of way. But they had their basic training by the Americans and by the Israelis, especially the anti-terrorist unit boys. They were trained in counterinsurgency and everything. Very well trained. If you bring some of them back now and put them against the new people, you will have a real good competition. They watched the whole show. And one by one, they got up and said they wanted to go pee-pee. They went behind ELBC and took off the military uniform they came with. And under the military uniform was civilian clothes. And with that, they got lost in the crowd and went back to shuffling and planned the takeover of LBS. General Quiwonkpa was still in that area, videotaping him, talking. Those boys came back and they exploded something and everybody got confused and the group ran into the place and captured the radio station, took off the tape recording. General Quiwonkpa had to retreat. I do not know the details of what happened to him, but there are a few things I know from reading good books, such books as Inside the CIA, Inside the KGB, Inside the Mossad. Good books that were sold in this town that young people should read so they can understand what's happening around them. When you are sent on such missions, they put around your neck a gold chain with a cyanide pill hanging on that chain. A cyanide pill is a pill that when it touches your tongue, you die without feeling anything, and you die instantly. And they will tell you, like for instance, it is sending me, they will say, well, Emmanuel, you know the deal. If anything should go wrong, we don't know you, you don't know us. Just take your pill and go to sleep. Well, the video revealed that two persons were there jumping up and down, said that they killed the general. The video also revealed that some people said they ate parts of the general. I do not know whether those people who ate parts of the general can still talk. Because some other people believe that the general was so black when he died that he might have died of his cyanide pill. And so somebody came and shot up the dead body and convinced those that they killed him. Because it was also said that when they captured the radio station and the general made contact with some of his friends in high places, they said, well, Thomas, you know the deal. There's nothing we can do about that. So he knew it was time for the pill. All this time, Doe was in the mansion. And Doe came from the mansion, drove to LBS and made a broadcast. And what happened? A lot of people that day were victimized because the information was misused. People in the Cinco area were convinced that the general was in power. People in the United States, in the Union of Liberian Association, were convinced that the general was firmly in power. In fact, the ULAA, the Union of Liberian Association in the United States, sent a fax to the mansion congratulating Quiwonkpa, and Doe received the fax. True story. Ask them. Thomas, who are you? All these people who are in that group, ask them. People, I'm telling you these stories because when it happens again, please know how to act. Don't be too anxious to congratulate. So, the people in Cinco area and Painesville and other places came in droves with palm leaves. I was in the US, but as a journalist, I reconstructed the whole story from notes and interviews. They came rushing up past by what a place name? City Hall. And when they reached in front of the Catholic Church, they were the Moag looking down on them. And the Moag opened up. And dump truck full of people were removed on that day because of a PR blunder that told the people that a general was in charge when in fact it was a cassette playing.